Alright, the Batman should be a part of the DCU. That's it. I'm gonna get straight to the point. The Batman should be part of the DCU. As you can see, I dressed for the occasion.
Alfred, you broke my fucking hands!
This is actually the worst mask I've ever worn in my entire life. I'm actually losing so much blood flow in my lips. I look like my lips puff out even more than Michael Keaton's.
Oh, yeah!
Batman in my loungewear.
Yeah.
See that? Uh-huh.
Yeah, big fan.
Fuck A$AP Rocky.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. I've been wanting to talk about the fact that I firmly believe that the Batman, the Matt Reeves universe should just be combined with the DCU. This is a pretty hot topic with all the DC movies and everything going on with the new DC universe with DC Studios. I'm gonna say DC a lot in this video. I'm gonna say Batman probably even more. I would like to know, what is your thought on this topic as a whole? Because obviously I'm very for the Batman and merging the DC universe, and I'll say just the main point, just having two different on-screen Batmans at the same time is going to be too much. It's going to be very over-bloated. We're going to be using the same villains, and I think the cohesiveness could work very well. And I really like the Matt Reeves universe. I loved The Penguin. It was a great fucking show. I don't know if you finished it.
I have no.
Damn it. It was great though. It was an absolutely amazing series. Colin Farrell deserves every award in that show. But I guess, yeah, my question is, what do you think about the Batman being in the DCU? Should it be separate, like, you know, an Elseworld story like the Joker and all these other movies that they're doing?
Right.
Or do you think it should be cohesive and together? Well, what are your thoughts?
I'm not against it being put in the DCU. I'm also not, like, you know, totally for it. You know, I think both sides can be argued. I would say, honestly, I'm leaning just a step more on it not being in the DCU. Just because, like, when I do watch the movie, I've seen it a few times since it's come out. I try to imagine not only Batman being, and now that we have the trailer for Superman, we know what it looks like. We know how they shoot it and how, you know, the colors look, how they color grade it, and what kind of vibe they're going for. So now we can imagine Robert Pattinson's Batman in that metropolis, which I don't think would be too out of place. It would definitely be different than what we see in The Batman. I think a harder part would be trying to imagine David Cornsweet's Superman in The Batman's Gotham. I think it would definitely stand out like a sore thumb, but like Superman just does that anyway, you know. And now we can imagine that Guy Gardner in this Gotham. So it just would be a little polarizing to see in the theater, you know.
Just someone shooting eye drops in their eyes. The Penguin was fucking violent. Mm-hmm. The Penguin is an extremely violent show. You know, it deals with the gangsters and underbelly of Gotham. So it definitely is a tonal shift from, let's say, Blue Beetle, which I think is part of the DCU, right?
I don't know. Maybe.
Shit's so confusing, bro.
Do we keep that same sort of level as time goes on, right? Because the way I'm imagining the DCU is that we get to a point where the Justice League is, you know, established and everything, and they have their like fucking like space station that they all chill out. Oh yeah, the satellite up, you know, there, with like Martian Manhunter and shit. Oh, can I see this Batman there? Maybe. I'm sure they could make it work, you know. But then again, that Batman that we see in, you know, the Justice League space station and interacting with characters like Martian Manhunter and things like that, I think a little bit of a different vibe than this Batman, right? Obviously, this Batman is in technically what would be year 2. So obviously he could develop into what we have seen throughout like animated series and things like that in comics. You know, right now he's in his detective bag, you know, big detective guy. He's basically like a secondary cop. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, he does everything that a cop would do, just with more violence, you know. But
more?
It would be different for sure. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just a matter of keeping the vibe. You know, we don't even know what they're going to do with the Batman 2. But for all we know, it could, you know, have a little bit of a shift towards what the new DCU is like. Because we do need a Batman to stick around for more than just like 2 movies.
Yeah, poor Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck was done such a disservice.
All right.
He really was. Yeah, so you're definitely in the middle. It seems like you're in the middle. You're not opposed to it, but you're not exactly rooting for it at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just, obviously, if it's done right, there's definitely a way you think they could do it right. There's a way that they can smoothly transition this Batman being with all these other very omnipotent forces, you know, like a hot girl and stuff. Because this Batman fights criminals so far.
Yeah.
And he's just fought people, right? You know, he hasn't even fought Bane or anyone that's exceeding him in strength, besides maybe like a slightly bigger bodybuilder, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I know I definitely see where you're coming from with that. However, I guess I will say, I think because it's so polarizing, it works perfectly. I think that's exactly why. And it's because I don't want the DCU, at least for me, I want the DCU's each movie to be not, you know, like polar opposite and stuff, but let's say an example, like with the MCU, you have the first Iron Man movie, which was pretty realistic, all things considered. You know, I mean, as realistic you can get with a guy building his own suit and making a new element, right?
It was more gritty and grimy than even Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Right? You know, like continuing from Iron Man 1, going to before the Avengers, it was a different type of vibe.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the whole purpose of Batman. Is Batman's the opposite of Superman in a lot of ways, right? With Gotham, the whole aesthetic of it as well. And I think that you did bring up a good point. That's kind of the point of Superman when he comes to Gotham.
Is that he stands out.
He stands out like a sore thumb, you know, because their hero is this brooding billionaire that
all
just beats
black.
the shit out of jaywalkers. Stealth. It's stealth versus a guy that's bulletproof. Well, I guess this Batman's kind of bulletproof too. I guess my main point with the Iron Man thing is that over time the MCU was able to slowly build on itself and its tones, its continuity, all these characters, expand its universe with how expansive the Marvel universe, especially is with the cosmic stuff that eventually led to Thanos. And with DC, I think they could do the exact same thing, right? Where it just starts with a very realistic setting with Batman, and then over time he can slowly go into more fantastical elements. And I'm not saying you got to bring in Batmite or any of these other really outlandish, ridiculous characters
really
off the
weird
bat.
shit.
Yeah, let Matt Reeves do what he wants. If he's obviously for it, you know, obviously Matt Reeves isn't for merging with the DCU. Then no, let him do his own thing. He's a very talented director and writer, and either way, I have faith in what he's doing with all the Batman movies. But I think it just seems like a waste. Because I really love what they're doing with the Batman, and I think it would be a perfect blend to differentiate the different tones that the DC universe holds, right? You read a Superman comic, it shouldn't be the same as a Batman comic. They're all different. And I like that James Gunn can do his own thing with Superman, and then Matt Reeves can do his own thing with Batman, and maybe there's some little subtle hints with like a newspaper that says Metropolis in the Batman or something, right? And then slowly you can work your way up. Not to the point where it's like the MCU, which people had a lot of issues with overuse of cameos and fan service, which I think definitely brought people out of that, like, oh, why is everything going to be a cinematic universe? But Batman and Superman's connections, and I think just the DC universe as a whole, it's so important to Batman's character arc. Now, when he works with the Justice League, let's say, that just shows that on how we can work as a team. There's some things he can't do alone, right? Or just him and Alfred. People say that this is a realistic universe, realistic Batman. And I will throw it out there, and it could be a hot take, it could not be a hot take. I'm so fucking sick of realistic Batman. We already had the Dark Knight trilogy, which is, I think, as realistic as you're probably going to get. But I think just over time, if you slowly build it up, like, you know, the first villain was a serial killer, essentially, which is the movie Seven, but with the Riddler, right? And then with the second movie, maybe you can introduce Mr. Freeze. You know, maybe you can introduce some other villains along those lines. Maybe even Clayface, because you could say like it's an experiment or whatever, and they can do really unique stuff with Clayface. But then maybe with the third movie or the fourth movie, depending on how many they want to do, then that's when you can just introduce the more outlandish villains. Because, you know, like with the Iron Man, that's a perfect example. You know, you had Ironmonger in the first movie, which is another Iron Man, and then you had in the second, which is another Iron Man, but is Whiplash, right? In the third movie, it's Mandarin. Which has like superhuman abilities, dragon tattoos, and all this other shit, breathing fire. That wouldn't have worked if you put that in the first movie. People wouldn't have bought into that. And obviously, different time, 2008, that movie came out. That's why it works so well. Even just from the first Iron Man movie to Avengers, where they're fighting aliens in New York. It's because they slowly built up to it.
For sure.
People get more accumulated with this universe, and it slowly works on its world building. So it just takes time, some patience, and some good writing, which I think all these people involved in these movies are more than capable of doing. And he's such a good Batman. I love what they're doing with Gotham. I just think it would be so cool to see this Batman join the DCU. I'm so sick of realistic Batman. I just don't want it anymore. I want these villains that haven't really gotten a shot yet. Like I said, Clayface. I mean, Killer Croc's never been fucking done right in the movies, and barely in some of the TV shows too. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the last Mr. Freeze in live action. Well, I guess there's Gotham, but
You know, I do like all the theories and things like that of the possible next villain for the Batman 2, with, you know, how it ended with the flood, and then, you know, Mr. Freeze would come in and ice over Gotham.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. Rumors of Court of Owls and Clayface for the second movie. So I think people are more stuck on the fact that, like, the experience of watching the Batman in theaters was like no other Batman experience you've ever had before. So I think some people are scared of how it would mix with something like Superman. But
and I completely understand that.
it definitely brings up a whole slew of, like, behind the scenes shit that, like, they would have to work out, right? Because we were talking before we started filming this video, the Batman, you know, came and got greenlit at kind of a weird time for DC, because it was like right in the middle of James Gunn being put into power and starting his new universe, and the old leaders and Zack Snyder being phased out, while other, like, DC properties was still being released. So
yeah, it was in a transition period.
Yeah.
It really was released at the most awkward time it could have.
You know, so it came out at a really weird time, and, you know, the first movie had come out and James Gunn still hadn't had a plan in place yet. And then he comes out with his plan and, you know, says the Batman isn't going to be in his DC universe. So that kind of throws everybody off, right? You know, like, oh, what the fuck?
I guess another point I want to bring up is he looks so brain dead. I'm a literal mouth breather. Yeah, this is definitely going to sell my side of the argument.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, this is the face of wanting Robert Pattinson to be part of the DCU.
I love him.
What was I saying?
I don't know.
Fuck.
The chances are the Batman 2 will have kind of the same vibe, but, you know, in the background, if they're like, hey, you know what, it might be smarter to integrate Robert Pattinson into the DCU, they can switch up the vibe just a little bit in Batman 2 to start meshing.
Yeah.
Meshing well.
And I think the best way to do that is introduce more outlandish villains. You know, not to the point where Mr. Freeze is throwing out ice puns every 2 minutes and then kills like a family of 5.
Yeah.
You just, you know, you can still make Batman dark and gritty, but you don't have to make it realistic to that extent. You know, it's superhero stuff, and you should be able to have fun with it. You should be able to, obviously, don't get to Adam West territory, but to the point where you're not ashamed. Because it does seem like for the Batman stuff, they're almost ashamed to incorporate the actual comic book parts into it.
Yeah.
Like they changed Penguin's name from Oswald Cobblepot to Oswald Cobb.
Yeah, Cobb.
And they just call him Oz, which is fine. Yeah, it's your nickname. His name's still Oswald, but like, you really need to change Cobblepot to Cobb.
Is that any better? Yeah, there's a lot that they just need to show audiences before an integration like that happens. You know, just so people can get acclimated. And like I said before, you know, a good way to do that is just subtle hints, little things like that, like mention Metropolis, mention, you know, there's something going on, and like Batman needs to go investigate. Or in Superman, you know, like mention Gotham, show a newspaper that shows something is happening in Gotham, right?
Or like it says crime rate spikes down, and here, or like even if it just says like Gotham flooded, like that's it. No one even has to acknowledge it. Just have it in the background. Like that's the kind of stuff that I think people will be fine with, because then if they really pay attention, they can enjoy that part. But then also it doesn't take away. You don't have to watch the Batman to watch a Superman movie. Yeah, you know, if you want to watch Justice League, you should probably watch the other ones, but you should still be able to watch and enjoy it all. I still think that's definitely fine. You're just going to be missing some key components,
you know,
right?
And Marvel does the same thing, right? Back when I think it was Iron Man 2. I could be wrong, but you know, like Nick Fury pulls up the map of, you know, located superheroes around the world, and you know, there's a dot in Wakanda, there's a dot in the Atlantic Ocean where Namor is, there's a dot, you know, over fucking in Russia. So yeah, you know, it's little things that like keen-eyed people are gonna notice and be like, oh shit, like, you know, they're planning to do this, like it's gonna happen. Yeah, and it doesn't take away from that movie and what it's trying to do. You know, like in that Iron Man 2, you're not like, oh man, yeah, thank God Thor was in there and made that quick cameo, right? No, Thor doesn't need to fucking be in there. In the same vein, Superman doesn't need to be in any of the Batman movies. He doesn't need to be in at all. Like I wouldn't want other heroes cameoing in Batman's movies. I would want Batman to still stick to his roots and be himself. For sure. That's perfectly fine, especially with Court of Owls. That's such an exciting story that I hope they adapt. That kind of just fully summarizes the way both of us feel on it. So, have I changed your mind at all? But maybe you changed one of their minds.
Maybe I did. Let me know in the comments if I changed your mind.
Yeah.
And let us know if you agree with us or disagree with me and agree with them or vice versa. Let us know what you think. Should the Matt Reeves verse be in the DCU? Should they be connected? Should they be separate? Should he pop in if they do an Infinite Crisis movie or something? I don't know. But we'll see. Only time will tell. Bye.